Are we good? And we're live. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, everybody. Sorry. Never mind. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Immortals Inc. podcast. And we were having some technical difficulties. And we're not on Facebook right now, but we're on Twitch, right? So if you're anywhere but Twitch, you're not hearing me say that anyway. But we would like to say I'm sorry. But hey, I'm Carlos from Immortals Inc. I'm back. We're going to be doing another game review. Sorry for the long delay. We had some issues, some sickness, some illness, some riots, some pandemics.
Yeah.
And we were able to...
usual stuff.
The usual.
Killer hornets.
Yeah.
Murder hornets.
Murder hornets. Yeah. And that's the usual Tuesday here in Cleveland. But I have our game reviewer and my co-host, Nate Elwood, with me today.
Hello.
And at the comm, we have Josh Stallings, part owner, part cyborg, all man. And today we're going to review in Cyberpunk, the role-playing game. Cyberpunk 2020, I think it's called.
So it's going to be a retro review. This one's been out for a while, but
yeah,
it's very apt considering what's going to be coming out soon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it is coming. The game, the movie, or something like that.
A video game and a new addition for tabletop as well.
I think a movie is.
Really?
Keanu Reeves, right? Josh is shaking his head. No, never mind.
Video game.
Video game.
Yes.
Is Keanu Reeves in it? In the video game. It's not a movie.
Bill and Ted's is coming back too.
I don't want to watch that. I've never watched that. It's terrible. But anyway, I'm trying to think what's new. We are getting back to business. We have our online store of TCG players up and running. We're going good. One of our employees, Shalee, is going to have a baby, so she had to step out. So we got Sophie in there. We got Grayton behind the desk working on the online store when he's not. We're going to goofing off. We're going to cash register. Got Diana, Josh, and Nancy back in here running around like little maniacs. We're going to be doing our podcast again on a regular basis. Events are just starting up. I know that we're doing limited amounts of events. We have to do the social distancing and restaurant rules we're following basically. But right now, Cardfight Vanguard on Mondays is starting back up. You got to call. We're going to be real strict about the number of people who can sit and be around. We're talking with the D&D group. By July, they want to restart up, and maybe we'll spread it out a little bit, maybe a couple days instead of just all on Wednesday. We'll have it like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday, we're going to want to do drafts. I don't think Wizards is supporting any. They are back to it, so we're going to be doing Friday Night Magic again. So we're going to start doing that again. Commanders on Saturday. And I think some other couple events here and there. And I'm trying to get events we had schedules. Like I was going to do that 40K swamp meet. Mm-hmm. I pushed that all the way back to July. So I can figure out what I'm going to do. July or August, one of the two. And new releases. We're still getting new stuff in again. D&D's rolling back up. It's kind of a slow roll, but we're going. But yeah, we're doing it. We're in here business. We're going to improve. Painting class, I just talked to two painters. Our favorite painters, Kristen from KD Paints and James from James Just Likes to Paint. We're going to be doing some painting classes. I just put it up in August. We're going to start some basic painting classes, and hopefully they'll have a whole schedule ranging from basic to advanced to intermediate, whatever we got to do. And I don't know. Other than that, nothing new and exciting. Actually, that's all new and exciting.
Yeah, pretty much everything's new and exciting since the shutdown.
Shut down. So, but anyway, we're going to be doing
Cyberpunk.
Yeah,
Cyberpunk. Yes, 2020. Cyberpunk 2020.
So take it away, Nate.
Yes, it's the ultra-violent dystopian future that you can play in instead of living in right now.
Yeah, but it's easier to live in.
So yeah, Cyberpunk's got a long history actually. It first came out in 1988. So
yes.
that's 32 years ago for you guys out there.
That's when I graduated high school. Believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah, right?
Just aged yourself there. Yeah.
Well, what do you want me to say?
Be another 10 years before I did.
I remember when that came out. It was a big box, and I couldn't afford it, but I wanted to buy it.
Oh.
So that's
it was one of the first of the genre.
Yeah, I was poor.
Of sci-fi genre. This one that we're reviewing today, the Cyberpunk 2020, it's the second edition of it. This came out in 1990. So the 88 rules and the 1990 rules were changed quite a bit, actually. But they really did it to update their...
Wait a minute. That's not a new edition of anything?
No, this is from 1990.
What?
Yeah.
Why'd they just release it?
Well...
Go ahead.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
oh, my God. I was like, oh, my God. I thought it was brand new. But go ahead. But they had a whole new line.
Well, this one updated the 1988. So this was 1990 was when this. That was when
my
this
God.
came out. 1990.
Okay. Did they just re-release it?
Well, then and I want to say, you guys are gonna have to correct me out there, but I think it was 2005. They came out with Cyberpunk version 3.0. Now I remember buying that because Cyberpunk.
I do remember that now that you say that.
It sucked horribly. I'm sorry if anybody out there likes it. This is just the opinion of Nate. But the third edition was a huge steaming pile of poop.
Did it have terrible artwork?
Everything about that.
I remember that for some. When you say that, I remember the bad artwork.
It was just
okay,
so
go
bad.
ahead.
It was so bad.
What year do you think that was?
But getting back to the relevance, coming out, I believe July of this year. It might be pushed back because of pandemics and stuff. But July of this year, there is a video game called Cyberpunk 2077 that is coming out.
Do believe it did get pushed back.
And there's going to be Cyberpunk Red, which is going to be the new edition of Cyberpunk. It's going to pick up from Cyberpunk 2020. They're basically taking everything that they did in 05 and throwing it down a giant garbage chute, which is where it belongs. So we'll do this retro review because, to be honest, Cyberpunk is and still holds up as one of the best sci-fi games that you can put on a tabletop.
Yep.
So the premise of the game, we're used to it now, but in the early 90s, this was cutting edge for what people, because at that time it was fantasy or fantasy.
It was almost offensive.
Yeah,
it was
people were like,
edge.
you can't have this. So I mean, it's a dystopian future. World looks like it's what the people of the late 80s, early 90s thought the world would look like in 2020.
Yeah.
So it's very dated in that sense, but basically all the world governments collapsed. The mega corporations took over. You have the haves and the have-nots. Is a huge gap between the two. Most people are hedonists, just living fast, doing what they can to make a name for themselves, or just living in obscurity and dying slowly from whatever disease or plague or food blight, whatever it may be. But your characters are kind of a cut above that. You are kind of running in the shadows of all of this, doing the work to either liberate or have noble goals, or to just be pricks and get money and kill people. So it's a great game off of that premise. I mean, and that's pretty much every cyberpunk or futuristic sci-fi premise out there. There's violence and horrific stuff, but there's great stuff too. So
I just had an epiphany, but go ahead.
So we'll get into the book itself. It's softcover, about 250 pages long. The artwork, it's all black and white. It's very dated now, but and it's early 90s looking artwork.
Yeah, it's all the.
But it's got great flavor to it. It really does.
Yeah, I thought that they did that on purpose. I'm like confused by it. But go ahead. I thought they did the old artwork style on purpose, but apparently it's just the old artwork style.
This is just that edition.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Where was I?
Sorry.
To navigate the book, again, well laid out actually, because I think they anticipate you having to flip through it quite a bit for the rule system, which we'll get into in a second. But other than that, it has a good index, good glossary. If you're looking for something, you can find it pretty easily. So the layout and the artwork and overall book thing, it's pretty good. Being soft cover though, you will get a lot of dog ears, a lot of creases and stuff. So I don't
classic 80s,
right.
90s
I mean, anybody
book.
Who's had a rule book of this type, which was pretty much any rule book back in the day, any amount of use after a while, the spine starts to break, pages start falling, but
gets worn in. Yeah.
Right. You wear it in, it becomes part of your
much loved
body, pretty much. So, we'll get into the character creation. So, everything starts off with obviously creating character. You get your group of peoples together and be like, all right, let's make some characters. And each person will choose a role, which is kind of like an archetype. you're kind of locked into those archetypes because the game system is kind of based off of all of that type of mechanics. So you can't be like, oh, I want to be multi-class or something like that. It's either you're this, that, or the other. But there's a lot of room within those archetypes to do what you want. So you have like just a couple of the sample ones, like a rocker boy or rocker girl, where you're like a rebel with a cause, like you use music or whatever, or violence to get your agenda across. You got net runners, which are like cybernetic computer hackers, or techies, which are like renegade doctors or mechanics. Nomads, which are your road warriors and gang members, stuff like that. You can also be part of the law, be a cop. You can be a corporate person where you're trying to become, you're a millionaire trying to become a billionaire type of stuff. So the archetypes are loose enough and diverse enough that it's not like everybody's playing the same type of character, which is awesome in my opinion. It's all a point system. So you have 9 stats. You derive points into those stats depending on what type of game you want to play, from like a less heroic, more gritty game to like an ultra heroic, like more campy,
high end,
like
high value, or
almost, yeah,
high stats.
Yes,
I guess
basically. Do you want to be like a grunt, or do you want to be a legendary hero?
This almost sounds like a lot like Shadowrun.
Well,
the
Shadowrun
classes
came out after this, actually.
Yeah.
Like
okay, so maybe
there's
just humans.
I think Shadowrun drew a lot off of Cyberpunk, but they came out. I shouldn't say they came out after. They came out around the same time. Where Shadowrun differs, though, is there's no orcs and there's no trolls.
There's no
and
magic.
No magic.
This is all mundane,
science fiction.
Yeah, sci-fi.
I wouldn't say mundane, but it's definitely
well compared to that, yeah.
But what this game did, and especially for the early '90s, is after you get you pick your role, you throw your numbers into stats. And then you go into something that was revolutionary for this time period, and that was called the life path. So you have your skeleton of your stats and everything, and what you're going to be, and then it's a randomized life chart that takes you from infancy all the way to maturity to where you're at right now, and it puts all the flesh, all the meat onto that skeleton.
And that's in there in the charts.
Yes,
almost like a character builder at this point.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Which
would it be the first character builder? No.
I'd have to research that. I don't want to. But I remember it being something because when I think I first came across this game in 1993 was when me and my buddies picked it up to play, and I remember like wow, because I used to love making backgrounds for my characters. I would make pages and pages. Some people would just be like, my parents are dead, I fight. That's, and I would always go into detail. So I really liked that there was an actual like mechanic even to get your character from infancy to where you're at. And it gives you different adjustments for your character sheet to make while you're doing it. Did you grow up with parents? Were you an orphan? Were they killed? Or were your brothers killed? Were you in a war? All that other stuff. They all goes through it, and it's like I said, at that time, it's almost commonplace now to have random background generators. I was going to say but back in the day, it was definitely more cutting edge, and it was a big appeal of the game. Then you go into skill sets. Each role has a different set of skill sets. You put your points into those skill sets. You have special skills that each role has, and based off of your special skills is how much money you get on your career path, and that's how you buy everything that you need, from guns to cyberware. And just like with any cybernetics in any game, you cram too much in you stop being human. And so it has a lot of cool mechanics.
Are there robots in here?
Yes and no. You have people that once you get to a certain point of cramming more machine in you than human, you can become basically a cyborg or whatever.
Okay.
But you're not going to be a PC at that point.
Yeah, okay. So like upgrades are bad.
It's not that it's bad. You just want to cram so much into you that you don't have. It literally takes away your humanity. It takes away what makes you.
There's a negative for doing that. In other words,
right? Yeah.
Okay.
The system itself, the game itself, not in combat or anything, just the game system itself is pretty simple, to be honest. You have you take a stat, you take the relative skill for that stat, and you roll a d10. You try to beat a difficulty number set by the GM, and that's based on the situation and other factors. If you beat that number, it's a success. If you don't, it's a failure. It's very simple.
So like it's probably like a lot of systems taken from that then.
Yes.
Because it's like, so basically if you want to shoot something, you just
Shooting's a little different, but
Wow.
it still uses that same type of thing because there's a lot of stuff.
You want to
that
do
goes
it.
into
You want to lift. You want to lift a car. You
Right.
take a strength plus a difficulty.
You want to open this door.
Yeah. Okay. That
Pick
would
the
be a
lock,
better
stuff
one.
like- so those types of stats and skills are pretty straightforward, to be honest. And I mean, there's other nuances to it. Obviously, I can't get into the entire rule set of the
No,
book,
no. Just the real basic stuff. So I guess what I'm trying to explain is like somebody who doesn't understand it or has ever played.
Yes.
It's like if you wanted to open the door, you wanted to pick that lock, you might use your dexterity or whatever relevant
Right.
skill. You add that to your
Lock-picking
D10.
skill
Yeah,
or
it
whatever
uses
it may be.
D10 system, right?
Yes, it's
And
all
so,
D10.
yeah,
and it's just one die.
And you roll one die, and then you add your skill. And if you beat the difficulty
Difficulty.
level set by the DM or the GM, you would be able to accomplish that
Yes.
task. So that's
I mean, it's just like any other role playing game out there.
basically.
Basically, right now. But again, back when this came out, you
That
had
was a big.
VACO.
That was a
in
big.
it.
Yeah, that was a big deal. That was a simple big deal
Yeah,
back
yeah.
then. Well, what do you mean? Roll one die and just add it?
But then we get into a really cool part of the game too, which is I think what most people really enjoyed about Cyberpunk, more than the setting, more than anything. I mean, this game was always style over substance. I mean, it was always that way. but
Yeah, it was more.
you had for combat what they called the Friday night firefight. And what they tried to do was break completely away from the regular, at that time, way damage was done. Because up until that time, it was mostly Dungeons and Dragons or D&D offshoots, where I hit you, you hit me, our hit points go down until you fall over. They actually did a ton of research to figure out how this combat system would work, because they went into archives back then and were like, well, they looked at police records and FBI records, and when stuff hits the fan and people start shooting at each other, how far away are they, all that types of stuff. And they're like, the most common type of firefight was not very far away, maybe 10 or 15 feet away from each other, normally in a not well lit area or with obstructions of some kind, and 15 to 20 rounds going off and nobody gets hit. So they wanted to take that and put it into a system, more accurate type of combat, not so realistic that it's insane, but not so fantasy that it
loses its
right.
It's,
I have a +7 sword. And,
yeah, it loses its deadliness or
Right.
it's
and that's one of the big things about the game. It is a deadly, deadly game. I mean, let's face it. To put it in their words, it's a gritty, mostly realistic combat system, very robust, and makes for a deadly game. Like it says in here, you're not just shooting at each other, losing hit points until you drop. A high-caliber gun will splatter people all over New Jersey, and you only get to lose a firefight once. So it is deadly. I will admit that. This game is deadly. There's ways to mitigate how deadly it is based on how fast you are, different cyborgs, different armor, all of that stuff. But when it brass tacks of it, you get hit with a gun, you're going to lose something. If not your life, then maybe a limb or two.
Yeah, you're not going to run around. That's probably good for such a dark setting. So
yeah, and to be honest, I mean, this is a gritty game. I mean, it's in a megalopolis. The main setting is called Friday Night City. It's basically Los Angeles to San Francisco, sprawling, huge skyscrapers, all the fun stuff. You got roaming gangs. You got the wastelands outside of that.
Yeah, very Blade Runner-ish.
Yes, Blade Runner,
Judge Dredd-ish.
Yes.
Yeah.
You shove all those concepts all together into a game, and
Cyberpunk.
you have Cyberpunk. And then there's another whole aspect of the game called net running, which is basically you putting yourself into a computer. Now, that's one of the downfalls of these types of, at least the genre of games.
There was a game, Netrunner, too.
Yes.
So,
but with Netrunner, everybody was kind of being a hacker. But with this one, and just like in Shadowrun, a lot of adventures need you to get information out of a computer system. And it's a really robust and fun. It's not so complicated that it's, like the Matrix in Shadowrun was a very complicated system. Very complicated. In Cyberpunk, it's not as complicated. It's about as complicated as their combat system for Friday Night Firefight. So you got a lot of options in it. But the problem is, what do the rest of the PCs do while the one Netrunner's doing it?
Yeah, you can't. Right. Yeah, you can't have all that. And it's almost like you'd have to have a separate adventure for just that guy.
Right.
Like, all right.
At which point, why is that other dude in the? You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's almost like an NPC is what that guy would be. And,
right.
They could. not to veer off, but I mean, I could see where you could say, well, you have the NPC who's the net runner, and then
Right.
you all decide as a group, tell me what's going on to get this, and we can, as a group adventure. But that would be probably what I would do.
Well, I mean,
because that would be the controlling factor. Like you always have that one guy that controls the game, and he's like annoying sometimes, and it's like you don't want to do that because then what does everybody else do? But
I remember when we would play Shadowrun, it would literally be, we had like a shaman and a mage and a street samurai, and then the one decker, and we get to the point in the adventure where the decker has to go through the matrix. Everybody else would grab a pizza. Wow, for 2.5 hours out of him in the gym. But with Cyberpunk, I did play a game of Cyberpunk. Unfortunately, it didn't last after, I think it was like 4 or 5 sessions, unfortunately, because one of the people moved away. But our game master did a really cool idea, which was a neat thing where everybody would play a secondary character, which was just a net runner. So when we get to the part, we'd call that other group that was affiliated with us, and then our other PCs would come in.
Oh, see, that's not a bad idea either. That's pretty good.
It was a nice way to mitigate it, but at the same time, that, in my opinion, that's one of the hardest things about any sci-fi cyberpunk type genre game, where you have this computer programming part of it, though, or going into a computer, which will draw away from everybody else. But other than that, I mean, it's still fun, even running the net. I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's part. I could never get into that. Like, to me, that wasn't, like if the way you just said the guy did it, you could have that, and there'd be another like mini adventure inside there. But to have one guy go and
everybody else, like I said, what are they doing? Twiddling their thumbs while they're talking?
Because that's no fun for anybody,
right?
I mean, if you had 2 DMs and you could have one guy running the net runner,
yes,
while the other guys are doing the firefight, the classic movie thing, like, oh god, open the door, whatever.
Right.
That would be fun, but then that's a whole lot of work. That takes it into.
And net running in this does take a huge amount of work on the GM's part, from designing the system to how they get in the system to all the. I mean,
I knew
it's a big portion of the book.
A lot of those older 80s, 90s, a lot of numbers and words. There was a lot of work to do it,
yes.
And especially modern settings like that with futuristic.
Well, you're dealing with technology that doesn't exist, so you're making up rules for stuff that you can't base off of reality right now.
Yeah, and it just becomes work. And
yes.
Then there's no hard set numbers of like this is a sword, this is a dagger, and that's what you got.
Right.
It's a whole lot of extra stuff that can be made. How long did it take to make a character? Did you make your wife do it again?
No. I sat around and did it myself.
Loser. No.
Actually, it took about. It takes a little while to make a character, especially going through the life path, and if you got min-maxers, it'll take even longer, especially if they don't know the system, because those min-maxers love to just read and get the nuance of, well, if I take this skill with this, or if I tweak this or tweak that. But I'm not that type. I wanted to make a cool character, so I made a what's called a solo, or a assassin bodyguard soldier of fortune. I'm like, that seems pretty cool to me. Crammed him with enough cyberware to make it cool, but it took me a good hour for me to go through, and that's just me flipping through the book and just getting a feel of what I wanted the character to do. But going through that life path, though, that was really fun. It was very nostalgic for me, but I really liked doing that.
That was an hour with the life path?
No, the life path was probably maybe 20 minutes of that.
No, I meant the whole character.
But the whole character creation, from taking a piece of paper out to having the last part of the character done, ready to play, was about 60 minutes.
So like I guess a session would we have to use just for character creations if you were doing it. You couldn't like show up and then start. Yeah.
I mean, you can always do the pre-gen character and here you go, but there's going to be a lot of flipping through the book, especially when it comes to the combat section, because different guns do different things, and it's crunchy enough to make it like exciting, but not so crunchy where you're like, oh my god, like the new Shadowrun edition. 5th edition, the one that I guess is no longer new, but when that one came out, they had like, if you throw a grenade down a manhole, the concussion and all. They had like
no.
It was like learning algebra. I'm just like, you throw a grenade down a manhole covered, the dude's dead. All right, I don't need to know how much damage he does or the guy's dead. Just go with that instead of here's this formula to figure it out.
But I know that. That was part of the older game systems like that. It wasn't as fast, and I think that comes just from a side effect that most people wrote or played these games when they first started were the number crunchers or the detail oriented people.
Well, I mean, if you look at the games that were out at that time, you had Rollmaster, which was literally just charts. I mean,
there's books of when you have one rule book and then 5 books of charts. That it's going to be a long day.
Yeah, I mean D&D always gets hit for Thaco, but I mean you could figure out Thaco, but Rollmaster was literally, I mean,
Yeah,
holy
there
moly.
was. We had a friend that played.
You get out the abacus and the slide rule on that.
I
one.
know.
That was,
We had a friend that loved Rollmaster, and it's just he was like watching paint dry sometimes with with the way. Well, we can go here. Well, it gives you all the detail. I don't need all that detail, man. Let's go. I got time.
I've always liked role playing more than rolling the dice and
yeah. I mean, to some people that's more exciting, and God bless them.
Their own. Yeah.
If you like that, that's fine. But me, I never could. I'm more of a story driven guy, and like I've always said, I don't know half the rules of the games I play, and I have to look at the players like, what?
Just wing it.
Yeah. Whatever. It sounds good. But so is there a lot of campaign in that, or wait? Okay, so you have the character build, you have the combat system.
Right.
Is there a campaign?
They have sample like adventures in there, and yeah, I mean you can.
And the setting's the book is actually set in Los Angeles, California, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean this right here is a complete setting. This is not only a complete setting; it's a complete rule set. There's no monsters. I mean,
this is
only
human,
facing humans. But you can do stuff with humans with cybernetics and everything else that makes them monstrous.
Yeah, so there's no.
But really, a lot of this is just a dystopian future and people making their way in it, and either for good or evil. I mean, you could take this in a very dark path.
That's I think.
But you can also take it in a very people trying to fight for social justice or something like that. I mean, you can do what you want with the game, just like any game. You can do what you want with it. But the game itself, it's a good game. It really it holds up even so many years later. This game is still fun to put on a table and still fun to play. Next to, like I said, the net running part of it, unless you have a bunch of hackers, that would be boring for the rest of the group. But other than that, this game is really fun to play.
That's funny. I thought that was a brand new version, but this is the version that came out in 90.
This came out in 1990. So the new version, I want to say, comes out in July when the Cyberpunk 2077 video game comes out.
That's probably why they released it out again.
Right.
They probably redid it because of that purpose.
Right. Now, I've read a little bit about the buzz. They don't really give a whole lot of details. They want to keep it kind of more suspense. Yeah. But Cyberpunk Red, I guess, picks up right where 2020 leaves off from their timeline, because this takes place in 2020.
And they ignore the third edition then?
Yeah, the third edition's gone.
Yeah, okay.
Third edition's completely gone.
Yeah, because I can remember that cover, and I remember there was a box. There was something. I have the old one at home. It just
all RPGs came in boxes.
Back
in
when
box set. You get dice and
back
when
it was fun.
Yeah,
but you carry it around, try to hide it from your friends. But yeah, okay, cool. And there's a campaign. Adventures, no monsters, obviously, but yeah, that's a complete rule set in there. I know there's a lot of adventures they came out with, the supplements. I got the whole line here, by the way. I guess some guys not too long ago, a couple days ago, I think my wife called, so they called around a bunch of places, they couldn't find it, and it's the only place that had it. So I was like happy about that. But there's a whole bunch of, I don't know if they were rules or adventures. I'm thinking they're adventures.
A lot of it's supplements, like on different parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
You have, because like I said, this is just the West Coast, not even the West Coast. This is just Los Angeles to San Fran.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the section in here, which is the history section, it talks about what happened around the world, how you came from what you remember in 1980 all the way to 2020. And how each government fell, and how right now the Middle East is a radioactive wasteland, and all major governments have collapsed. There's blights, and I mean, there's still stuff happening in New York. There's still stuff happening in Florida and stuff. But in between, what's going on?
Who made this?
This was
Artel. Right there in the corner. It was.
I'm trying to pronounce it correctly. Talsorian Games.
Yeah, I can't remember where they're out of though, but that's an older game company.
But it like I said, it still holds up today. If you're looking, and to be honest, it's not the most expensive of rule books.
How much was that thing?
I want to say that it retails for.
Is that on the back by chance? I know it wasn't much. It wasn't much as far as rule books go.
I want to say $40 or
no
less than.
Josh doesn't.
You know what? They don't have a MS.
I know. I don't even think they have They have barcode on there. Yeah.
Yeah, they got a. But it's.
I know it wasn't much. I think it was like $30 even, but don't quote me on that. But it was not that much. So
So if you're looking for a retro game, or if you sold your copy of Cyberpunk or it's gone, it's well worth picking up again. To be
Or
honest.
background material. I always like the
It's $30.
Yeah,
Okay.
see. Yeah, I knew it wasn't much. It was like a cheaper price. So it was,
And it's a complete game system.
Yeah.
Like I said, you don't need a bestiary. You don't need a DMG. Everything you want to play the game just requires your imagination in this book. That's it. So you can't get the supplements, and I think it really
it's a
is
good
more
background.
of, background
I remember
and histories.
Yeah, I remember reading the background. When I first saw it, I thought it was cool, and I was like, "What is this about?" And there was always like, back then it was different. There was some hype about it and everything like that, and that it was disapproved of at the time, and it's a terrible thing, and blah blah blah.
Right.
But it was just a game. But
Yeah,
it's
all
good
it is.
background stuff like that. But like the red and the game is supposed to come out that.
No, the game looks pretty cool, and I think that I'm hoping that people who play the game might actually want to play the tabletop version. I mean, that's how I got into Shadowrun.
I do notice.
If it wasn't for the Sega Genesis, I would have never played Shadowrun. So
I do notice that when people play video games or they come out with the Spurge, they come to the rules, because you can get video games, you get a lot of stuff in there, but you can't get the finer points or the nuances or the true storytelling that you can get from.
But you get the flavor.
Yes,
you get the flavor really well. If that gets you going, then.
But then you want all the extra.
Yeah.
So I do know that the video game
Uh-huh.
was based off of that.
Of this 2020.
One of the games.
Yeah.
Like they went through like the rules and how things work, and
I bet you. I'd like to see.
Probably Cyberpunk Red is what they
Yeah.
based it off of. I'm hoping, because that's the one that's going to be released almost in line with the video game.
I know they did off a whole game.
Yeah.
So they probably took everything, maybe. But yeah, that's.
To be honest, the system's not bad. I mean, they might have polished it up, but the core system, it's really good. So
It's simple,
I
if
can't
I
see
remember.
them
Yeah, it's
completely
simple,
changing
yeah.
everything. But then again, I haven't had a copy of
Well,
the
I
game.
think they
so.
learned their lesson when they third edition, so they probably don't do that again.
It got some. Again, I'm sure there were people out there who enjoyed it, but my opinion of it was crap in my opinion.
Yeah,
and,
I
and
mean,
unfortunately,
I can remember some Cyberpunk because there was that old Cyberpunk, the 80s style, and that was that. And then I remember another version, and it had really like cheesy art. Like, did somebody make this at home? Like kind of art. And I'm like, which is fine if I've seen a lot of low end stuff that's really good. That was not. And I just remember that it got bad reviews, or it didn't go anywhere. And hopefully it does. I mean, like you said, it's a good
And
genre.
it's a
It's a good
classic.
system. Yeah, it's classic. It's a good system.
Classic
It's a good
system.
genre and all that stuff. And hopefully it sees it. But what do you suggest? You get new players?
new players, yeah. Yeah,
Simple
definitely.
system.
Simple enough. I mean, it'll take a little bit for the GM to truly grasp, especially the net running part of it. But players will pick it up pretty
Younger
quickly.
people with like active imaginations.
Oh
easy.
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, obviously the themes in it. I wouldn't have children playing it.
Well, I would say like teenagers.
Yeah.
Teenagers.
Yeah.
Like you got young adults.
Young
I guess
adults
was-
would
I
go
guess what I
with
was
it,
going
right.
to. And then older players, classic players.
But, oh, heck, I mean, if they're anywhere near my age, then they've already played
Yeah.
it before. So
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
pick it up again.
Something to do.
This game though is
campaign or
great.
no?
A campaign, yeah. I mean, I
one
could see you
one
stringing
shots, couple games, couple months, couple sessions.
Yeah.
Is that more for that, or is it like?
No, I mean this could range from a one-off. Hey, let's just play this as a fun little side quest.
Back in '94, so it was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to revisit it again.
Well, there you go.
Well, it's definitely worth revisiting. I mean, like I said, it's been a while since I picked up the book.
Yeah.
And when I got it from you, I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember this game. And I think my copy, I dropped it in water or something, and through the years it disappeared.
Yeah.
But I remember like I said, that one game we didn't play that long because one guy moved away, but it was such a fun, obviously my views are based off of my experiences. So like I had a good experience with it. If somebody
Yeah.
has a bad experience with it, I really hate this part of it. Or I really hate that part. But to be honest, the system itself is good. It's a solid system. The Friday Night Fight rules are good. It's gritty. It's deadly, but it's good. You feel like you have a chance in it. It's not like it's just like you explode. I mean, there's ways to.
Yeah, get around it.
But And
like
then again, if you can get around the net running part of it, or creative enough to do something about it.
See, if I played it, I would probably just that would just be like a minor footnote in the game for me, or I wouldn't want to deal with that and be like, oh, what do we hire this guy to get this information? Either he does or he doesn't. But I probably wouldn't, because to me it doesn't do anything for me. But like this, the firefights and the
there's
future.
a lot you can go off of it too, like the different roles you can have. Everybody is, even though it'd be kind of, mono skill sets or whatever, but what if everybody was all rocker boys and they're all in the same band? Or what if everybody was all assassins or bodyguards for one person? Or everybody all plays cops on one or a single gang or something like that. I mean, you can do a lot with it. And you can really create a great story around that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's definitely a classic game that doesn't lose its shine.
I think
even 30 years later.
Yeah, I think you're getting your background from that.
Right.
The background is the world is what you're getting from this game.
And if you're going to wait till Red comes out, like I said, they're kind of keeping on, at least from what I've read. I don't know anybody out there. Maybe they have something more in depth. But from what I read, they're really keeping.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was a new version.
They're really keeping true to the not just the setting and the feeling of the game, but they're keeping true to how the game
flowed. Okay.
Right. I don't know what they're going to do to polish. I mean, they've had a long time to polish up the system.
I'm sure it'll be little.
And they've had one big turd that they're like, okay, we're not doing that again. So yeah,
let's stay away from that.
I'm somewhat excited to see what Red's going to be and how they update from, because like I said, this is really dated. I mean, you still have like fax machines.
See, that's what's killing me.
And
I thought they did that.
Laser discs.
I thought they did that to show the date of it. I didn't know that was the old one.
Yes.
So that's funny, but that's cool. All right, well, what'd you give it out of a 10 there?
Out of a 10, I would give this a solid 8.
Oh, that's cool.
Solid 8 out of 10. Just because this is a retro version.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a newest edition coming out soon, so somebody's like, I'm going to pick up the Cyberpunk 2020, and then,
for that much, for
but
30
bucks, to be honest,
you can play
it's worth it. It's
you never know. It's at least it's it'll lead up into the Red, or like background information or how to feel, like literally.
And if anything, it's funny to look at just what people thought.
And it's
2020 would be
and that's
in
funny
1988
because you can look and see what it was
instead
of like looking now and saying, oh, this is what our representation of what it was. That's fun.
Like with Shadow, going back to Shadow, because they really do play off each other a whole lot.
Yeah, when I was younger, I always thought it was the same group of guys, but it was like all the nuances appeared. But
like with the old Shadowrun that came out in the 80s, early 90s, once technology kind of caught up to what they thought the future would look like, they're like, oh well, like in 4th edition, I mean, everybody was on wireless here in the real world, so they made the Matrix wireless and stuff, instead of having to plug your brain directly into stuff. I mean, so I'm curious to see how they do that type of stuff with Cyberpunk. I'm hoping that they do new net running rules, or at least making it more inclusive somehow. Yeah. But we'll see. We'll see what it is. But yeah, it's a fun game. It holds up. It's a blast to play. If you're looking for something that's
decent price, lots
dark, gritty, and futuristic. I mean,
decent price.
You could literally make Blade Runner in this if you want.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. That's what I look at it when I see it. And then plenty of supplements too. So
yeah, I mean,
lots of
it's
stuff
been around 30 years.
Yeah, so lots of stuff to go back on. But all right, cool. What are you thinking about next time?
We say it every time, but if you guys are out there, if you want to see a game reviewed, please let us know. Yeah. We're just kind of shooting in the dark, and I think this would be cool. I think that'd be cool. So
we walk out there and say, "What's this?" Okay, grab it. But
you don't have to be really specific at this point. Just say, "I want something that takes place with steampunk," or "I want something that takes place with fantasy," and then we'll rack our brains and be like, "Oh, we'll do this one." So
yeah,
TBA. For at the moment.
Yeah, we'll figure it out before we leave. We always do.
Yeah.
It was funny I had an epiphany when I was sitting there and you were talking. You ever notice like all the games that are in the past are always you're the hero in a world fighting. Everything's good and then something shows up that's bad. But if you go in the future, everything's bad and everything's bad. And you're not even the good. You don't even have to be the good. It's like, geez, Pete. I go, come up with that game where everything's good in the future and you have to stop something happening. I mean, Cthulhu's kind of... But it's not at all. It's a close.
I can't even think of the game.
Yeah, I can't think of a game at the top of my head where everything's all happy and glory in the future, and and then something's showing up.
You have to go back to make sure that it stays that way.
Yeah, or you see it coming. You're like, up, let's all go stop that from messing up my house. But you don't. It just that was my epiphany. I'm like, well, why is it that way? I go rose-colored, hindsight's 2020, rose-colored glasses, blah blah blah. But it was pretty funny.
I do think though, like most futuristic things tend to be that way because people just are like, well, in the future everything's just going to suck because stuff sucks now. So it's only,
At this particular moment,
if it's 10 times more technology, that means that's 10 times going to suck more.
They always like people like, oh, it's better in the old days. With what?
Right.
What?
Which old days we're talking about?
Can we go look at the history? Like,
Yeah.
what didn't we have? Like Josh, 40 years ago, Josh wouldn't. He'd be in a sack. But I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool. All right. Well, I shared my epiphany for the day.
Not to end it on that, but I
Well, I
have a
gotta
good
make
friend
one.
who said he doesn't think humans will. The only reason humans haven't come back from the future, as in we've time travel, is because either A, we've destroyed ourselves before we got to it, or B, we never get to that point. So.
Well, I don't.
That's always the dark. He's like, yeah. He's
I
we probably never came back because humans killed each other off before we figured it out.
I don't think time travel would be. I think we'll get to another dimension before we'll get time travel. But that's just me because I'm crazy. But I'd like to take a moment. Do you know we have a Patreon?
I do.
That supports stuff.
Please
and
support
they actually
us.
Pay us.
We enjoy it.
But we have Patreon supporters. I'm going to start mentioning them. I'm going to call you out. No, I'm kidding. Going to mention them. We got A.E. Jonesy. We got Elyunn. Right, Josh? Am I saying that right? We got Lane DeLong. We got Melior Via, which is, I believe, John Dunn's company. So he helps us out. Roger Cherni. We appreciate everything. Rusty Littell. And my favorite right now is Thomas Forms. But yeah, these guys support us on Patreon every month. We have we did the Patreon right before everything shut down again. Yes. We had a new way of doing it, and we had different levels. We got it down to like 3 levels, and we got some special stuff going on. Correct. And we're going to get back to we're going to have chats with the owners. So we're going to have like a forum where you could chat with us. And there was another one where we're going to have a exclusive help me out here, exclusive podcast or exclusive material that we're going to post on. And we're going to get back to doing that. And we also have some T-shirts and knickknacks you can get.
So how does if somebody's interested in becoming a Patreon member,
go to Patreon/Immortals Inc. and show up. And I think we have a link on our site somewhere, correct? Right. And
point and click, not bad at all.
Yeah, point and click. Yeah, Josh is pretty good about that. So he's all over it. And I'd like to mention, I'll give a shout out to Josh. He's streaming?
Really?
Game streaming?
Oh, yes, I have. I've seen it on Facebook.
He is
Call of Duty.
Call of Duty disabled gamer. I don't know how he spells it. Disabled gamer. No E, right? Come on, man. Promote yourself. Yeah. So he's doing that. So if you want to watch him, he's all right at Call of Duty. Get on there and watch him. He likes his supporters. But, yeah, he's doing quite well. So give him a call. All right, guys. Until next time, we'll see you later.
And come into the store.
Yeah. Come in the store, immortalsinc.com, 216-712-7169. And just Google us. We'll pop up. Apparently, we're everywhere.